So the wonderful Will from MOLOCO is here to carry on telling us all about a developer's guide to UA strategy and DSP partnerships.
Thanks for coming to the talk. So I'm William. I'm VP of Sales at EMEA. That's me. It's a bit backwards, but yeah, VP of Sales at EMEA. We launched actually at this event 2 years ago. It was just me and my second in command, Alex Bidaway. There's now 30 of us in the London office, and MOLOCO is a performance DSP. So you may have heard of us, or you may not, because we haven't really had a marketing department until about a few months ago, Michaela being one of them. So thanks for helping with everything, Michaela. So today I'm going to talk about how you can ultimately scale with a DSP. So there'll be a bit of an introduction, and you'll find a lot about partnerships, because actually scaling really requires a strong partnership. So I was kind of trying to think about what it actually looks like, and funnily enough, for those who've met their life partner, it looks a bit like a really, really strong marriage, I'd say. It's about mutuality, cooperation, clearly defined roles, and it works really well when you get that foundation correct. So there's actually quite a bit about partnerships, and then we move into scaling techniques, which typically happens pretty easily once you've got the foundations correctly. So who is MOLOCO? We are a machine learning business. There's a lot of us out there, I know. But ultimately, our sort of vision is to make machine learning accessible to businesses of all sizes across the ecosystem. And there's two sides to our business. The one most important to you guys will be the DSP. And this is how we use ML to drive return on ad spend for your user acquisition campaigns in the non-owned and operated space. The other side to the business is RMP. It's retail media platform, and that basically uses RML to monetize users of retail apps. So where do we exist? We exist outside of Google and Facebook, ultimately. So a lot of you may have bought direct deals from the networks. There's about 63% of user impressions come from that space. 60% of spend goes into the 37% of impressions coming from Google and Facebook. So I guess what you could see MOLOCO as is the ability to use ML to drive better performance for the remaining 63% of impressions. So partnerships, keys to success. As I said, it's the foundation, and without that foundation, there's no scale. So what to consider first? So joint expectations. Basically, we need, and we both need, clear goals from the partnership. What does success look like to you? When are you seeing positive ROAS? By what time do you need it? And then from a DSP perspective, what do we need to know from a developer? What are your budgets? What are your spend caps? By when do you need to see success? Also, what do you like with VT-CT ratios? How are you deduping installs, if you are or not? These are really crucial pieces of information that we need to understand, because unless the bidder understands this, it's going to bid incorrectly for you. So getting that set up right with your sales rep from MOLOCO or any other DSP, as well as your implementation manager, is pretty crucial there. Finally, we need agreed milestones. So do you work on evaluation cycles? How frequent are they? Can you let us know when you're having them so we can provide you with the data you might need to evaluate your success of a campaign? Partnership roles. So from a developer perspective, I would say our most successful partnerships, and we can scale up to $250,000 a day with some of our largest clients. These guys, they know their LTV curve. It's really crucial that you understand what LTV looks like in the long term and how you can proxy that back to your sort of earlier D7 sort of timetable. Are there proxy events that are a great indicator of success that can give your account manager at the DSP end some indication as to how we're doing if there's a longer term event that you're targeting? What's your time from install to in-app purchase? Crucial. It gives us an indication, although we might be working to D7 ROAS, if we know that 80% of your purchases come on D3, that's a great way for us to understand early indications of success and make action one way or shape or form. And then post in-app purchase, what is your frequency of in-app purchase? How many further purchases can we expect? And therefore, how are we doing in terms of frequency? And then from the DSP, what can you expect from us? Well, we've got to know our product. We're kind of a bunch of geeks, I would say, in MOLOCO. Hence, we didn't have a marketing department until recently. And we've got a lot of experience of how to scale using the DSP. And we've also got a lot of market intel. So we offer good advice. It's a shared role. It's a partnership. We want to scale as much as you do when we're hitting ROAS. So that's really going to be the key to what we can offer here. In terms of mutual expectations, I think it's about shared feedback and data. This goes both ways. And over time, if we do set things up, we might even change our product for you. So some good examples here were a CT-VT knob, which enables us to get our bidder to not bid where VT looks strong, because it didn't recognize back in 2020 a VT from a CT. That came up, we changed the product, so now we can bring that to bear and we can make sure that works. Other things would be our multi-geo campaigns, which are great for targeting tier 3 geos across multiple geos in one campaign. And then data sharing. So why is it so important? Our bidder works to your data. Ultimately, transparency both ways really is fundamental. And the more data our ML gets and listens into, the better it can bid for you. So we look at your unattributed data. For MOLOCO in particular, we require unattributed data. Our minimum is installs and actions. But also benchmarking, it helps us understand where we're at in your marketing mix. And then qualitative, what's your feedback? How are we doing? What can we do better? Really, really important that we hear this so we can ultimately work with you and perform better for you. And then when it comes to the postbacks that you select, we need the right postbacks. Garbage in, garbage out is the phrase. But we need to be targeting the postback that works for you and delivers ultimately ROAS and your targets. So that's a bit about partnerships. In terms of KPIs, I thought about this too. I think there's lines of responsibility here. So I'd say, I think the client's responsibility is to give us a KPI that is the right KPI for them. And then it's the DSP's responsibility to hit that KPI. And I think if we align ourselves along that way, we can get into a good partnership format there. The key considerations with KPIs, it's what is it, your ultimate KPI? I think most in the game space, it's return on ad spend, typically D7. That could change. But the more reporting we get post D7, the better we can optimize our campaigns. Do we need a proxy? I think this is a key one. So we're actually doing really well in the hybrid casual space. We are entering into the hyper casual space. It was a little bit impractical to target ad revenue. So what did we do? We targeted in-app purchases. We're picking up a very, very large swathe of ad revenue at the same time. So that acted as a proxy for total return on ad spend, and it's working really well with our clients. Then is that KPI realistic and achievable? I guess we find out in practice, but also your account manager can give you a sense of whether or not we think we'll hit that. And then have you factored in your time and the budget it takes to learn? So it does take time. There's usually about a 4 to 6 week period where the DSP improves and your campaigns improve, but we should be getting early signals, and your account manager can give you a sense in terms of the early signals as to where we're going. But we like to see success within about a month. So your testing strategy. So we need a clearly defined testing strategy. So what's your budget? What are the geos you want to work in? I think from a geo's perspective, if you work direct, typically by the way, I've sold off-a-wall, I've sold rewarded video direct. And back in those days, especially with rewarded video, you take a small country because you didn't want to leverage yourself too much and saw if it would work. From us, you kind of reverse the equation. And you want to go where the DSP works well. So the USA for us would be our normal testing budget because we've got so many campaigns. We know that market so well, and we can match the audience back against your targets. What is your minimum testing period? How does that match with your budget? What time am I at? Oh, we're going through quite nicely. And what events are the important ones for you and for us to target? And are there any new DSP features that you could use? For instance, multi-geo campaigns. I think for a test, I'd say keep it simple, take some advice from your account manager, and they'll sort of work out from your data where we think we can see success. And then you've got an assessment framework. So I'd say what we want ideally is assessment to be at the campaign level. So if it's at the bundle level, what we can see is the test bring down overall performance. So you might be testing, you might have a live campaign that's going well. We'd like to see essentially tests being assessed at the campaign level, basically. So partnerships. I think this is the key bit, operational excellence. So this is like what your partnership looks like with our account managers day to day. So the pre-agreed optimization logic. So I'd say this is actually taken from some of our largest spenders, and it works very, very well. And I think just because they're the largest spenders, it doesn't mean anyone can't just actually adopt these processes. So pre-agreed optimization logic. We can't just immediately optimize by switching off publishers. In fact, switching off publishers harms campaigns for us because it reduces the data pool that our bidder can work on and therefore drives up CPM. So we have to work slightly differently. So an optimization logic might be something like, if you've seen underperforming campaign for 2 weeks, at that point, then we discuss maybe dropping the budget a little bit to see if we can improve performance there. Or it might be, if we see success during the week and we're seeing positive ROAS in a campaign, we do a 10 or 20% burst at the weekend where you know you're going to pick up users. And this way you can really either hedge your bets and play a bit of defense, or you can potentially maximize scale. So setting that right with your account manager with MOLOCO is an important working process. And then shared dashboards. So this is a single source of truth. So we all have an MMP. A lot of our partners also use an internal dashboard set up from their own BI. In practice, we see some discrepancies. This could be a bit of a nightmare because actually, if we see success, we might think our campaign's doing great. And if our partner is working from a different hymn book, I think it's a hymn book, they might be seeing something completely different. So what we'd ask really is that we work from the same source of truth, whether that's the internal BI, if you can give us a login, or we both work from the MMP. I think that's mission critical to keep us all on the same page on an ongoing basis. And then a shared log of changes. So it's quite a complex process working with a DSP. Logging the changes that are made and both partners having access to these changes. It's an important piece of that process. Things happen over time with a DSP. Performance can either decay or improve, and this can happen over weeks or months. And it's really important that we have a time-stamped log of changes so that we can look back and maybe try and get an understanding of what may have been done that can have influenced this performance change. So keeping that going and keeping that live is another key point. And then finally, I kind of referred to this earlier in the test process. So one of the things my account managers have done is really work hard with our largest clients to define business as usual and test budgets. Ultimately, we don't want one campaign with our partners. We want multiple campaigns globally. The problem that happens is when you have a learning phase, it takes time for a campaign to actually begin to perform. So if you lump it all together in one budget, a learning phase of a new test campaign can bring down the overall performance. When you report back up to your superiors, it can make it quite tough to sort of promote us as a business. So where we have seen a lot of success with some of our largest partners is to argue the case to separate test from business as usual budgets. When we do that, we get the test budgets going through and the test campaigns, and when they hit performance, we move them into BAU. So that can continue on its scale process. So that would be the operational process we'd like to work with our partners. Oh, it's a countdown. I had loads of time. Yeah, it's a good point, thanks. Okay, we're pretty much there actually. So that's partnerships, that's the marriage, or my vision of a marriage. I hope it works with you guys. So scaling techniques. So there's ultimately two types of scaling. There's vertical and there's horizontal. My sales guys know I like horizontal. Thank you, Zan. we're going to just cover two. So vertical scaling. So this is a bit of a pitch. Something that happened with MOLOCO in last year, in 2021, was we realized our ML could work rapidly. In 2020, I mean, as I said, we launched in 2020, we were cautious. We didn't want to overstretch our ML, and we had very, very, very gradual scaling models. And actually, the rapid scale technique is a great example of a partnership. So we didn't come up with it, actually. It's one of our largest partners decided they wanted to stretch our machine learning and our bidder. They wanted to have a go. So they basically set our bidder at a 20% increase in revenue in our daily cap every 3 days to 4 days for a few weeks to see how high it could go before we saw a performance drop. So we all thought we'd give it a go. And it actually looks something like that. So we actually scaled very, very rapidly. And this curve is a pretty normal thing now with our rapid scaling methodology. And what you can see is rapid scale, it kind of overshoots the mark of where we can hit performance. There's a slight correction, and then we ultimately stabilize out, and we see basically pretty stable performance ongoing. After that point, it will be improvements in the product, market changes, and things that will impact performance. But it's a great way of maximizing the revenue you can get from a new partner, albeit specifically a DSP, in that way. So then horizontal scaling. Interestingly enough, you see all these colors, that's different geos. So that's quite interesting. So that exponential growth curve is because this campaign was run across multiple geos. So multiple geos are a great piece to work with. We've got successful campaigns. You don't always want to scale vertically in one, ideally, because that's actually potentially risky when it comes to performance. So how can you then scale your spend with us, go horizontal and launch multiple geos at any given point? Your account managers will take a data-informed approach. They'll look at your install to action ratios, market size, app representation in different markets, and can actually recommend you different markets in which you can conduct new tests. And actually, because we're integrated with all the key exchanges, where your app's performing, we should also be able to find performance. So our best scaled partner out of EMEA is live in 75 markets. So I think that's about it, really. That's what we covered. We want shared expectations. We want defined roles. We want to share data, and we want you to share your data. Operational excellence, and that should really see scale.